guys, today I'm filming a review of the Violet Voss Flamingo palette. So this is not going to be in my typical palette of the month format, and that's for a few different reasons. First off, I was not able to capture all the looks I created. I only got 3 looks on camera, 2 looks I did test out with these shadows, but I didn't get those on camera to share with you. But the eye look I'm wearing today, I was able to film a demo of that, so you can see some of these shadows in action. And I didn't test this out for a full month, but I felt like I tested it enough to know that this is not a palette I want to keep in my collection, and that would be for a few different reasons that I will get to. But I'm going to leave you guys with that cliffhanger and talk about some of the details of this product. So the Violet Voss Flamingo palette retails for $45. You can buy it from Sephora as well as the Violet Voss website. And I believe that there are some affiliate coupon codes for Violet Voss for about 10% off, but I personally would rather buy it from Sephora so that it's easier to return and so I can get some Sephora points. So it is up to you, but it is $45, which I think is a pretty good price for a high-end palette, especially considering how many shades that you have in here. So this packaging is a very sturdy cardboard packaging. I think it is super cute design, and it actually feels pretty hefty. So for the packaging, you have this pretty big mirror with some little flip-flops here, which is fantastic. I love the size of this, and there are actually 20 different shades in this palette, which is awesome. So you have 5 rows of 4, and you have both mattes and shimmers in this palette. This is a mostly colorful palette, but then you do have a matte cream and a matte black. I think it's really nice that they included both of those. I never use black shadows, and I'm not sure how many people are going to pull in a black shadow with these looks, but I'm sure that some people will, and it is a nice staple shade to add in there. But I do think it is fun that the rest of these colors are truly bright. Now these 3 more orange shades can definitely be seen as neutrals, just depending on what other shades you pair them with, but I think that's a good balance of a colorful and a neutral shadow because they aren't more brown, they're actually more orange. So now I will show you all the shades with swatches. And unfortunately, Talia does not have this on her website at all, so I do not have any dupe pictures to share with you, but I would love it if you guys know of any dupes, and if Talia does review this in the future, I will just add the link to the description box of this video. So here are swatches of most of the shades, and then I've got some in the back of my hand, but don't worry about these scratches here. I got scratched up when we were moving some stuff. This is Flamingos, which is a matte. Donut, which is a foiled shimmer. Flip Flops is a foiled shimmer. Bikini is a foiled shimmer. Oceanfront is a matte. Tidal Wave is a foiled shimmer. Beach Ball is a matte. Watermelon is a matte, but it has some glitter particles in it. Lemonade is a matte. Pineapple is a foiled shimmer. Popsicle is a matte. And Sunbathe is a matte. These 2 are looking identical in the swatches, which is crazy because they look so different in the pan and on my eyes. Popsicle is a lot brighter, and Sunbathe is a lot more muted, and it is lighter, but I guess it can be built up to look exactly the same, which is pretty crazy. So there's the first 3 rows of the palette. So then here's the 4th row of the palette. We have Surf, which is a foiled shimmer. Coral is a matte. Island is a foiled shimmer. That's one of my favorite shades. Sand is a matte. Then we have the bottom row of this palette. Seashell is a foiled shimmer, but you can barely see it. This one is so incredibly sheer with the base, and it just has glitter particles, so this one is even worse than Flip Flops. Then we have Pinwheel, which is a foiled shimmer, kind of a cranberry that doesn't necessarily go with a lot of the other shades in this palette. Then we have Sandals, which is a matte that I love, and Sunnies, which is a really incredible matte black. So now I will show you guys the clips of the looks I created. Again, unfortunately, I only captured 2 of the looks on camera, but I do have a 3rd, which is a little mini tutorial for this eye look. Here is today's look using my palette of the month. As a base on my lid, I'm using the Balm Batter Up Shadow Stick in Curveball. I'm wearing Island on my lid, Sunbathe as my transition color, Popsicle as my crease color, and Sandals as my outer corner color. Here what the eyes look like up close. On my cheeks, I'm wearing MAC Blush in Ripe for Love. On my lips, I'm wearing the Tarteist Glossy Lip Paint in the shade Obvi. Here's today's look using my palette of the month. As a base on my lid, I'm using the Milani Shadow Stick in Snowy White, which is just a matte white base. For my transition color in the inner part of my crease, I'm using Oceanfront. In the outer corner and outer part of my crease, I am using Beach Ball. Pressed on my lid, I am wearing Tidal Wave. And in the center of my lid, I topped off Tidal Wave with this shade Surf. Here what the eyes look like up close. On my cheeks, I'm wearing theBalm's Hot Mama. On my lips, I'm wearing the e.l.f. Tinted Lip Oil in Nude Kiss. So I've already primed my eyes and I set my crease with a matte cream and I set my brow bone with a matte white. So I'm going to take the matte yellow shade Lemonade and apply it as my transition color with this Morphe R38 brush. So I picked up a ton of product on my brush. As you can see, this shade barely shows up even on my fair skin tone, so I do go back in a couple times to try to build up the color, and I'm just using windshield wiper motions and small circular motions to help buff this in. Now I'm going to take the Maybelline Color Tattoo in Too Cool, which is a shimmery white, and I am going to apply this on my lid with my finger, and this is just going to help intensify the lid shade and help it adhere to my eye. This is something I do with all of my powder shadows. Then I'm going to take this shimmery yellow Pineapple from the palette and pack it on my lid with my MAC 239 flat shader brush. And this shade is a really pretty, very light yellow, a little icy, but it is so much more pigmented than the matte yellow, thank goodness. And of course the cream base helps. So just going in a couple times to build up the color all over my lid, but it is so metallic and reflective. This color I think looks very pretty. It's not that impressive in a swatch, but over a cream base it looks really nice. Next, I am taking this lighter, more muted orange called Sunbathe and applying this in my crease with my Morphe R39 brush. This shade Sunbathe is definitely one of the most pigmented colors in this palette. All of the oranges show up really well. So I'm just using this to define my crease and then taking what I have left on the brush into the inner part of the crease. Then I'm taking this darker orange Popsicle and I'm going to apply this in my outer corner in the outer part of my crease with my MAC 286 Duo Fiber Tapered Blending Brush. This shade I think is so beautiful. Again, the oranges are the best shades in this palette. They're the most pigmented for sure out of the mattes. And just adding some more definition in the outer part of my eye, blending what's left on the inner part. Next, I'm going to take the shade Sand, which is more or less a matte cream, and I am going to apply that with this ColourPop blending brush just to use it to clean up my shadow. This color is really pigmented as well. Like, this is basically like an eyeshadow eraser for my skin tone. It is so pigmented. It just really helps me clean up my look. Then I'm going to take that shimmery yellow Pineapple color and I'm going to pack it on my lid with my finger to just re-intensify the shade, and oh, it is so pretty. But then I'm going to go back in with that matte yellow Lemonade color and this Morphe M506 brush, which is a much skinnier, more precise blending type brush, and I am going to try to pack that Lemonade color right around the edge of my crease color to help it blend a little better and to help that yellow show up a bit, because you can't really see it very much right now. So this takes quite a few passes. I think that actually looks very pretty once I can get it built up. So now all the shadow is done up top and I'm going to move on to the lower lash line. I'm going to take the Milani Shadow Eyes Pencil in Snowy White, which is a matte white base, similar to the NYX Gemma Pencil in Milk. I am going to very carefully just line right against my lash line until like the middle of my eye. And I'm trying to keep it pretty thin, just because that's most flattering on my eye shape, but for you, you might want it a little thicker. And I'll add a little bit of thickness here to the outer part of my eye, but I definitely want it really thin towards the center. So I'm going to take the shade Tidal Wave on the outer 2/3 of my lower lash line, and then I'm going to take the shade Surf on the inner part of my lower lash line and just meld the two together. Because I don't have a smudge brush, I find that this MAC 242 brush, this really thin synthetic shader brush, works well to get really precise against my lash line. So just picked up some of Tidal Wave on the brush, which is one of the best shades in this palette. And I'm gonna draw that right against my lower lash line. This brush works so well for me as a substitute for a smudger brush. And I don't own one because I don't often do stuff on my lower lash line, but I thought it looked really pretty with this look. So now taking that lighter, more dusty blue shade, Surf, on that first inner part, and this one looks a little icier, which is really pretty. But it's not quite as pigmented, so I do have to layer this one up a little bit. And then just gonna run over where the two meet to help them melt together. And this is the finished eyeshadow look. I'm not gonna do any liner today, but you definitely could. I'm just gonna do some mascara. So now to talk about the formula, the texture, and the pigmentation. I do not think that the formula and the pigmentation within all of these shades is the same. There are some mattes that apply really pigmentedly, other mattes that are super sheer, the same with the shimmers, and I think that doesn't really have to do with the inconsistency in the formula. I think some colors are just more difficult to formulate, especially because this is a more bright palette. So the best shades from this palette for the mattes would definitely be these three more orangey toned shades: Sunbathe, Popsicle, and Sandals. Those are incredibly pigmented. They blend out really nicely. Sand and Sunnies, the cream and the matte black, very pigmented, blend out nicely. So those are the best shades in this palette, and those are the most neutral ones, and maybe they're more easy to formulate, I'm not sure, but those definitely performed the best out of the mattes. And the worst out of the mattes would definitely be Oceanfront, which is this really light blue, and Lemonade, which is this light yellow. Now these are the most pastel shades in this palette, so it makes sense that they don't perform the best, but I had such a hard time getting either of these shades to show up on my eye, and I was packing on a ton of color, and I'm a very fair skin tone. I'm an NC15, so it's hard for me to believe that these shades would show up at all on anyone with a deeper complexion than me. Now maybe if you put a matte white base underneath of them, it would work better, but I don't like doing that in my crease. I only like using more of a cream base on my lid, so I was really disappointed with these two shades. I was able to make them work slightly, especially using that little small blending brush I showed you guys in the tutorial today that I used with the yellow. That helps pack on some of the color, but you definitely have to do a lot of layers to get it to show up. Next in this palette you have three corals. That would be this shade Coral, which is a matte, Flamingos, which is a matte, and Watermelon, which is a matte base, but it has some glitter particles in it. Why do brands keep doing that? None of us like matte shades with glitter in them, but those three shades are so similar, you definitely do not need all three. If you just had two of them, you would totally be good. I used all three of those together with some of these other shimmers in a look. That was one of the ones I wasn't able to get on camera, and these shades definitely required building to get the kind of intense pigment I was looking for, so that was a bit of a bummer because I didn't expect to have trouble with those shades. They weren't as bad as these two, but I did have to build them up quite a bit, and I love doing monochromatic eyes, but those three shades are so similar it didn't really create much depth on the eye. Then this matte shade Beach Ball is very pigmented, but it did require a little bit of effort when blending, but I do find that to be true with a lot of matte teals. Just something about them can go a little bit patchy, so you have to be careful when working with it. So I did find that this one is better than some other matte teals that I have, like Makeup Geek Shark Bait. That one does not perform very well. This one was a little bit difficult, but much better than that one. So I think that's all for the mattes. Then for the shimmers, I think the shimmers in this palette are so beautiful. My most favorite would be this color Island. It looks so dynamic on the eye. It was the first look I created with this palette. I absolutely fell in love with that shade. I'm actually using Pineapple for the first time today on my lid over top of a cream base. It is super dynamic and beautiful, so I'm actually really loving this shade, and I don't already have any other shimmery yellows in my collection, so those two are my most favorite, along with this color Tidal Wave. I have it on my lower lash line, but in my blue look I did use that on my lid, and I thought it was really beautiful, and it is really pigmented. Then this shade Surf here is a little bit more sheer. It definitely needs more of a white base underneath to show the color. I think that one is really pretty, but it doesn't perform the best for me in the pigmentation area. And then the colors I was the most disappointed in within the shimmers would be Flip Flops and Bikini. So this shade Flip Flops is a really weird mauvey pink shimmery color, and this one has a lot of glitter but not that much of a base color, so it looked pretty sheer on the eye, and I really had to build it up, and I wasn't really happy with the color of it. And then this shade Bikini, which is a beautiful purple color, looks really pretty and dynamic, but I did create an eye look using that one and then a bunch of Makeup Geek matte purple eyeshadows to get a full purple look. And even when I went in at the end of the look and applied a second layer with my finger, it didn't look that shimmery. It was pretty pigmented, but it didn't look as shimmery as it does in the pan, which is really disappointing. Again, I know purples are kind of hard to formulate. The color of this one is beautiful, but I wasn't as in love with it as I expected to be. I also really wish there was a matte purple within this palette. They definitely could have taken out one of these matte corals and put in a matte purple. I would have loved that so much more if they added that shade into this palette. And the shade Seashell down here is a little bit sheer as well. It's similar to Flip Flops, where it has more of a sheer base with a ton of glitter. And then this shimmery pink donut is just a color I would never wear, so I didn't actually end up using that one, but I did use all of the rest of the shades within this palette. So the formula of the shimmers is a little bit more of that dimethicone shade, so it works really well on the lid with a natural hairbrush as well as applying it with a finger. Overall, for majority of the shimmers, I think they perform really well and look very beautiful. The mattes, however, some perform better than others, but all of them did require a bit of building to pack on the intensity that I would like. I do think that this palette performed pretty well, and there are some shades in this palette I absolutely love, like the shimmery yellow, orange, and blue. I also love all of the matte orange shades in this palette, but that's really it. And those are all shades that are pretty dupable and I can definitely get from other brands, and I don't think it is worth me keeping this $45 palette, even though I love those shades so much and it is pretty tempting. This is just not a palette for me, and it is my first time trying Violet Voss shadows, and I just want mattes that are a bit more pigmented, but also the other shades in this palette I don't see myself reaching for. And I was really intimidated by the fact that this is an all color palette. I wasn't sure how to create looks using it. I had some suggestions for you guys, just working in rows. I think that works well for some of the rows, but not all of them. And again, when I was creating my looks, I was trying to just stick to this palette, not pull for other palettes or other singles, except when I created that purple look. And I love the way that the Makeup Geek shadows looked in the eye, but I wasn't that impressed with the purple bikini in this palette. So after I created this eye look today, I fell in love with this palette a little bit more. It's very tempting for me to keep it, but overall, for me personally, it's not worth it because I don't love the formula of all of the shadows and I don't love the color of all of the shadows. I definitely would be interested in trying other Violet Voss palettes in the future, because maybe in a more neutral tone palette, they won't have as many difficulties with the pigmentation as they would with this Brights palette. So I don't think it's a bad palette, but it's definitely not my most favorite. I will be returning it because it is really pricey, and I would love to know your all's thoughts if you've tried this. Basically everybody else that I've heard talk about this has absolutely loved it, so I think I'm definitely in the minority. And again, I don't think it's a terrible palette, it just isn't the one for me. So I did want to share my thoughts with you guys on that, but I would love to know if you guys have this palette, what your thoughts are, what looks you've created, and I would love to know if you guys have tried any other Violet Voss palettes and what are your thoughts on their formula. So I want to thank you guys so much for watching this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye guys.